All right, Dr. Steve Turley has some positive news here from conservatives.
A fascinating poll from Zogby Analytics, and it's a poll just over 1,000 likely voters. That is key, by the way. Most polls that you see are polls of registered voters, which are the easiest, cheapest, and fastest polls out there. So CNN will call around a registered voter database. In a matter of just a few hours, they'll find that Biden has a 99-point lead over Trump. Well, what do you know? Here's our new headline, and then they just go with it. This kind of polling of registered voters has become a kind of like ambulance chasing, a headlines fishing polling for the mainstream media. The problem is that registered voters don't necessarily vote. Upwards of 30 to 40% don't vote. So registered voter samples are not very good indicators of what election results are going to be. So what you want is you want to sample what are called likely voters. And these are voters that have voted in, say, the last 3 or 4 election cycles and are definitely planning on voting in the next one. That's who Scott Rasmussen focuses on. Trump, by the way, is 47% approval. That's who Zogby is focusing on, 1,000 likely voters. And Zogby asked him a question. Do you believe that Joe Biden, the presumed Democratic Party nominee, do you believe that Biden is in the early stages of dementia? Now, to be honest with you, I'm shocked the poll question was even asked. Okay, I'm astonished that a major reputable polling firm like Zogby was so bold to ask that question. But it is an important one. The Bernie Sanders campaign brought it up, right? If you elect Joe Biden to represent the Democratic Party over Bernie, you are committing political suicide because the guy is obviously experiencing major cognitive decline. And if it's not obvious to you, it's sure the heck going to be obvious to independents because the Trump campaign will make sure of that. So now, folks, we're in a situation where the Bernie Sanders campaign, the former campaign, is frankly being vindicated. Pollsters, major pollsters are now asking the question, do you believe that Joe Biden is in the early stages of dementia? And the results speak for themselves. A solid majority of Americans do in fact believe that Joe Biden is in the early stages of dementia. Now, you may think I'm being impulsive here, but I'm just going to come out and say it bluntly. If this is the case, the election is over. If 55% of Americans believe that Joe Biden is experiencing the early stages of dementia, this election is over, period. There is no way that a majority of Americans are going to vote for someone who is demonstrably senile. Yes, Democrats will, but you'll notice in the poll the vast majority of independents, 56%, think it's more likely that Biden has dementia than those who don't. And this is precisely
Now, this independence area, or people that are likely to poll again or vote again, is important because they have a history of voting, and independents generally swing the way the individual is elected. National individuals are elected.
why Bernie's people, this is what they were warning the Democrats about. Young people too, 60% of voters between the ages of 18 and 26 believe Biden exhibits early onset dementia. No, this election is over. These are accurate. As we draw closer and closer to the election cycle, the symptoms of Biden's dementia are only going to grow stronger, and it will become a major political issue. And then think of how cringeworthy it's going to be when he tries, however futile, to explain his way out of it. I mean, can you even just begin to hear the stammering? How convincing is that going to be? So I think this poll is the beginning of the end in many ways. Now, I never thought Biden had a chance, but I just think this poll solidifies that. I mean, even 43% of blacks think he has dementia. So this is not good news. This is a nightmare for the Biden campaign. Now, of course, this poll couldn't have come at a more convenient time for President Trump because he's gearing up for what promises to be the single most amazing, massive Trump rally ever. We've never seen numbers like this. Over 1 million tickets have been requested for the rally set for tomorrow, Saturday, in Tulsa. Obviously setting a new record for a Trump event. By contrast, Joe Biden could not even fill a high school gymnasium. And gang, that is not mere rhetoric. Okay, that is not right-wing wishful thinking or hyperbole. Look at this. Do you know what this is? This is a picture from one of Biden's first public events after he emerged from his basement just a couple of days ago. It's in Darby, Pennsylvania. It's actually his home state. He moved to Delaware.
Holy cow. Pathetic. And they probably paid those people to show up.
This is a major campaign stop just the other day where he delivered a speech to a room of barely 20 people. Gang, even the New York Times is having to admit this is utterly embarrassing. You have Trump getting ready to speak to upwards of 1 million fans in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you have Biden speaking in his own hometown to barely 20 people, most of whom, by the way, were reporters. And this, my friends, is precisely why the Marxist media is so scared to death.
Most of them were reporters? Unreal.
Death of the return of the Trump rallies, because they're going to show the entire nation just how pathetic the Biden campaign really is. So that's why, if you read the feckless banter spewed out by the left-wing mainstream media, the cultural Marxist propagandists disguised as the press, don't ever forget, we have a free press that actively seeks to censor opinions and reports it doesn't like, okay? But that's why our propagandist press is focusing so much on the supposed health risks provoked by the mass onslaught of people coming into town for the rally. Look at this one from Vanity Fair. How do you like this? This shouldn't be happening. Tulsa health officials despair. Did you hear that, gang? They despair as the Trump rally rolls into town. So where were you with the protests over the past few weeks, Vanity Fair? Where was the despair back then? Everyone knows this is a charade, that the left, which unfortunately includes a lot of healthcare workers, everyone knows that they're nothing more than shills for cultural Marxism at this point. They have actively attempted to politicize a pandemic, and such mass recognition has only impeded their ability to continue to the charade. So in the meantime, President Trump is beginning to rev up the Trump train like never before and fire up his troops. His voter intensity levels are through the roof. They're only going to get higher. The enthusiasm gap between
Voter intensity levels are through the roof. I told you the last time I did this video that I believe he will break the 2016 records. If there isn't massive voter fraud, I think we'll break the 2016 records. Think about that. Think about that for a moment. That he will break and surpass those records. Think about that. God bless America.
Between him and Biden's nearly 20 points wider than back in 2016, and with the news of most people believing that Biden has dementia, we can expect that enthusiasm gap to only get wider.
20 points ahead of Biden. 20 points ahead of Biden. 20 points ahead in 2016. And it'll be more this year.